Hey everyone, and welcome to today's video. So in this video I'm going to show you how to do an MVC ASP.NET web application with some more rich features on the front end or on the actual page. So if you know how to do it in ASPX web forms, you know that if you want to fire some control events on the form, it will you work through the events on the code behind in the C# code. But now when you're doing it in MVC, it's a little bit different, and you have to write some client-side scripting such as JavaScript or jQuery and Ajax to get the same effect. Okay, so the older event model is not really available in the code behind, because you have a CSHTML form MVC page or a Razor view, and you don't have the same kind of event model firing in the background. So you need to do some jQuery and JavaScripting. And so I'm going to show you how to specifically do add some advanced features on the page. We have different sections hiding and showing based on a user selection in the drop-down box. So yeah, this is in ASP.NET, the standard .NET framework, and it's a MVC web application with some advanced front-end features. So pay close attention to what I'm doing, and you'll see that it's quite easy to do it.
Okay, so this is kind of the end result that we're looking for in this video, and it's basically that you have a very basic ASP.NET MVC web application, and we want to get some advanced features on the front-end controls going, like having a drop-down list, putting some data from the database, and when you change the selection, it'll automatically populate the department box, as you can see here, retail department. So we want to have something like this going a bit more advanced. For instance, when you select the employee type here, contractor, it'll actually show another section on the form, contracting company. It'll show or hide based on the selection. So how do we achieve this in the MVC app? So it's a bit different than the ASPX web forms, where you have events on the front end triggering the code behind C#. Here we actually have to use some client-side scripting, JavaScript or jQuery specifically with Ajax, and I'm going to show you how to exactly achieve that. So I'm going to stop this application and I'm going to create a new one from scratch to show you step by step how to achieve this. So let's go to Visual Studio. I'm working on 2017, but you might as well do this in, it's going to be just about exactly the same in Visual Studio 2010, 2012, 2013, 2015 as well. The only difference is going to be the project template, where you choose what kind of project to start. But the coding, the client and the server side is going to be exactly the same. The database side exactly the same. The only difference in Visual Studio version that you're using is, of course, the template that you base your project on. So let's just wait for Visual Studio to open up and we get cracking. Okay, so you can click on File, New, File, New Project. This is just about exactly the same in any version of Visual Studio, of any recent version of Visual Studio. So you're going to select, in this case, ASP.NET Web Application .NET Framework. Make sure not to select the ASP.NET Core Web Application. Just as a side note, in another video I did upload recently, I do show you how to do this in .NET Core as well, so in the ASP.NET Core. Okay, but in this one I'm just going to use the regular .NET Framework, ASP.NET Web Application, and let's give it a name, and let's call it something like JQuery Ajax sample. Okay. And here be sure to select MVC and not web forms. In the previous video, one of our previous videos, I did show exactly how to achieve this in a web forms, the old style ASPX web forms application. Okay, but for now this is MVC. We're going to do it in MVC. Don't click on change authentication, just leave that for now. This is beyond the scope of this example, so we're not going to use authentication. You can just click on OK. And just give Visual Studio a little bit of time to set up and create your solution. So Visual Studio has created our solution. If you click on the View menu, Solution Explorer, you'll see that's what it looks like. Okay, so now first things first, we need to go to the database to create the actual database first. So I have a database here called My Company, and I've got three tables. I've got an employee table, employee type, and manager. And to show you what the table definition looked like, so you can create it the same on your side. I have here employee. Okay, so it is name is employee. It's got an employee ID as a data type int. The column data type, it is an identity type 1,1, which means it will increment, auto increment starting from 1, and it's not null. This is your primary key as indicated with the constraint here pk underscore employee, which is a primary key. And then you also need first name, last name, city, manager ID, employee type ID, and contracting company. So important to note here is manager ID is of course a foreign key referring to the manager ID in your manager table, which is the manager of the specific employee. You also have an employee type ID, which also is a foreign key referenced in the employee type table to indicate what kind of employee this is. And we're going to have two types, basically contracting and permanent employees. And then we have a contracting company in bar chart text field, which is just going to show the name of the contracting company if the employee is a contractor. So let's go to employee type. We have here employee type. We have employee type ID as your primary key, and it's going to look the same. Let me just go into the definition here, and you'll we have an employee type ID as the primary key, also an identity column. It will auto increment from 1. We have an employee type description field, and that's basically it for that table. And then we have a manager table. Okay, same thing here. It has a primary key called manager ID, and has first name, last name, department. Department also important here to note. This is going to be the department for that manager, department that he is leading. And that is basically those are our three tables. Okay, so then let's go back to our application, and the first thing we're going to do here is to basically right click on the top of our project, and we're going to add a data model, or entity data model. So we're going to go to add, and this is to basically connect our application to our database. So we're going to add here ADO.NET entity data model. If it doesn't come up in the list here, you just go to add new item, and then you've got to select your web, and then it should be somewhere here. No, sorry, Visual C# data, and select your ADO.NET entity model, and you can give it any name you want. You just give it a name here of, say, employee model. Okay, and here in this dialog box, we're going to select EF Designer from database. Next. And then you're going to click on New Connection. Establish a connection to your database. And you're going to type in here the name of your server, name of your SQL server, either on your network or on your local machine. And just give it some time to load the databases, and there we go. You're going to select My Company. So make sure you under authentication you selected the correct authentication. If you have Windows authentication set up, which means it will directly take your Windows login and authenticate it against the SQL server. Okay, so then otherwise, if you don't have Windows authentication, you have SQL Server authentication. You're going to select that and put in your username and password, and click Save Password to connect to your SQL Server in that way. Okay, so click on Test Connection. Make sure you selected the correct database in the drop down here, and go. Oops, go there. Okay, Visual Studio is really annoying here. Let me just make sure there. Okay, we have the right database selected. Nope. Okay, folks, so don't click too quick for SQL Server for Visual Studio. Okay, let's get our database. There we go. Company, test connection. Okay, bam. Next. And I'm just going to select the Entity Framework 6. And it's going to ask for the database objects that we want to get into our model here. And you're going to expand tables, DBO, and select employee type, and manager, all three of them. Click on Finish. Okay, so here you can see on the diagram is the employee type and the manager. So it's created it's pulled in three database objects for us, which correspond to the tables in our database. And what you need to do is in your Solution Explorer, expand your employee model.edmx file, and the one that says .tt, the context.tt, and then context.cs. And if you double click on that, it's going to show you the context, the DB context that it has created for you, and will have three DB set virtual public properties, which corresponds to those three database objects. Okay, so the next step is now to go to the controllers folder, and you're going to right click here and say add new scaffolded item, and you can select your MVC5 controller with views using Entity Framework. So we're going to use Entity Framework here to scaffold or to generate a lot of code for us. It's going to create a controller and views, which is going to be your CS HTML view pages. And it saves you a lot of time by doing this. Just make sure in the model class you select the correct one. In this case, it's for the employee, so we're going to select your employee and click on the plus here for the data context, and just type in a name here, employees, or any name that's going to make sense for you for this data context, and click on add, and click on add again. Okay, let's just click on OK there. Close, we just save everything and rebuild. Sometimes it needs a rebuild for this. Okay, so make sure the rebuild has succeeded. And you go back to controllers, the controllers folder, and right click and select add new scaffolded item. MVC5 controller with views using Entity Framework. And select your model class once again. And click on plus here. Give a name for your context. Click on add. Click on add again. Okay, right, so there we go. It's created a employees controller, as you will see here in the controllers folder. You have another file here called employeescontroller.cs, and it will have a new instance here of the employees context or your database context. Now if you go and F12 on this or right click and select go to definition, it'll take you right to the DB context file, and which it created in your models folder. Okay, so here you will see we have one object here which is the employees one. Let's just create the other two as well for employee type. Okay, give it a name employee type. So as you'll see, we already have a context actually after having created that model. So you can either use this auto-generated one that it has created for us. I'm just showing you the manual route of if you want to code it yourself. Okay, so actually let us just close this one and not use it. Maybe it's not a good idea because this is not the .NET Core framework which requires you to manually create these. So let's actually just sorry folks, let's just delete that one, this employees context in your models. Okay, and let's just use the one that it has created here for us. Okay, so what you notice, it's it's created your controller for you, employees controller. Let's just see if it's now referencing the correct context. Okay, so it actually uses my company entities. Copy that and put it in your controller here, so it's using the correct one. Okay, cool, there we go. Now it should hopefully use the, should pick up the correct objects here. So this should correspond to the name of your employee model. Okay, my company entities in this case. Okay, great. Then go to your views folder and see there's another folder called employees, which has also auto-generated for you. Now double click on the create CSHTML file And this is the page you're going to go to when users create a new record, and this is where we're gonna focus for now. Is when you create a new employee in the system. Okay, so let's see if this is working. So without changing anything, let's see if the default is working. We click on the play button here to open it up in Google Chrome or whichever browser you are using. Okay, so the application is running in the browser. Click on the items here above just to get the URL going, and then you're going to type in your employees /index just to test that it's actually connecting to your database and able to load data. Okay, so we are loading data here, so this appears to be working fine. Now most probably if you created a new database from scratch, you will not have any data here, so you need to go back to your database and add some data into the tables. And the way you do that, if you don't know how, you would right click on the table. This is just one way of adding data into your table. Right click on it, and sorry, it's taking a bit long because there's some process running on my machine which is using too much RAM, so you can just be a little bit patient. Okay, so right click and select edit top 200 rows. The alternative is to write some SQL code to actually insert data into the table. So if you know how to do that, you can go ahead. Otherwise, just right click on the table, select edit top 200 rows, and then you can actually add data here. So you can go to a new row of data, and you will adding some dummy data here. Just make sure you give each and every column a value, and you click enter after that. Okay, for instance, say we're adding here first name Harry, last name Hamilton, and say here we add a city, manager ID. Now, of course, here you need to go back to the manager table first because we won't have an existing manager to allocate to this employee. So you can right click and once again click on edit to the top 200 rows, and then you add a manager first to the manager table in order to get that foreign key value. So adding some values here into this manager table. The manager ID is of course auto-generated, so don't worry about that. Add in the first and last department, and then add a couple of rows, and then just basically remember the manager ID that you want to allocate to that employee, and you add it into the manager ID column, say 3, and then of course for the employee type ID you have to do the same thing. Go to the employee type table and add some data there. Okay, we need a permanent and a contractor in the description, so we need two two records here, okay, permanent and contractor. So then you go back and you add in, say, either number 1 or 2, and you can leave the contracting company blank for now because you can add it on the front end on your application. Okay, click enter, and you will have data. So okay, now I'll go. You can close your browser and actually stop the application. And now we're going to add some code to the employees controller, to our controller that has been scaffolded or automatically created for us. And we're going to add some specific code to populate the drop-down list on the form, on the page, as I showed you the end result of and what we want to achieve with this application. So you're going to go to, in your controller, you're going to scroll down until you find public action result create, and you're going to add some code over here. So I'm just going to grab it from my application, my sample that I created before, and I'm going to grab the code from there and then go through it with you line by line to explain what we're actually doing. Okay, so you're basically going to create two viewbag variables, which are kind of like similar to session variables in the older ASPX web forms. Okay, so okay, right. So we're going to say viewbag.managerID. This is a dynamically allocated variable. We're going to have, say, equals new select list, and select lists are used for drop-down boxes on the page. We're going to say here db.managers. Okay, this should come up as a IntelliSense. Okay, because we have the managers object there, and db of course refers to your my company entities data context. So you're going to say select list db managers, and then the second argument is going to be manager ID. Now this is the you say it must bind to which value in your table, and which column must store the actual value, and you can store the manager ID value, and you're going to display, say, the first name or the last name, whichever you want to display. Okay, right. You're going to have another viewbag.employee type ID. Because you want to have another drop-down list for the employee type, contract or permanent that you want to select from. You're going to say new select list. You're going to use employee types, and you're going to bind it to employee type ID, and the next argument or next parameter is going to be employee type description, which is a display field. And you're going to say return view. Okay, so then we go back to our create.cs HTML page or view, okay, in your views folder. Double click on that one, create.cs HTML, and you're going to scroll down until you find this one, manager, for manager ID. Okay, so here you will see you have html.editor4, and you're going to change this, and you're going to basically change it to code that I'm going to give you now. Drop down list, you're going to use drop down list instead of the editor4. So this line of code you have to remove and replace it with the following. Okay, you can pause your video right there. Anyway, this is what you need. So html.dropdown list. Okay, remember the at prefix here to indicate that you're writing code. So you're going to say dropdown list, and you're going to have your manager ID in double quotes, which refers to viewbag we just created in the code behind in the controller, manager ID. Okay, and you're going to have a null here as the next value, the next parameter value, and then you're going to have a select in quotes, or you can put in there anything you'd like. This is going to be your default item selectable in the drop-down list. You can say select or select an item, or please choose something or whatever. And then the next argument is going to be HTML attributes, colon, new, curly bracket at class equals form dash control. This is the same for basically everything on this page. Okay, this is just standard. You refer to the CSS class that it has to use to do the styling for this object. Okay, so this is all you need to change there. Then you're going to scroll down, you're going to go to the next one, it's employee type ID. You're going to have exactly the same thing here. So you can just copy that code almost exactly. You're just going to change it to employee type ID, which has to be the same as your employee type ID here. View back, okay? So make sure that corresponds. You're going to have select here. You can have select there, and it's going to be exactly the same thing. Alright, so the next step we want to do is to add some jQuery or JavaScript, and you're going to scroll down to the page to the bottom where it says section scripts, and you're going to add some script here. Now this is to basically when the user selects an item in the drop-down list, you want to perform certain actions. You want to populate the department the department text box. Just go back to and make sure you have a department text box here. We don't have one, so let me just grab the code there and create this department. So you're gonna put it right below the manager ID. So we want to populate a field called txt department based on the selection of the manager. Okay, so you're going to have your input type equals text. You can give it an ID txt department, because you're going to refer to this name, this ID in your jQuery code. You're going to make it read-only and disabled, so the user cannot physically manually type in anything. You want to auto-populate it. Okay, now you're going to scroll down. You're going to go to the section scripts section here, and you're going to add some code here. I'm going to go through this code with you to explain how it's working. I'm just going to grab my code from here to save some time in having to type this out. So you're gonna type here right. So basically, you're gonna here where it says scripts.render. Okay, you're gonna have here you're gonna open up a tag here called script, and inside script you're gonna have your $document.ready. Now this means that this code, any code you place below this line, is $document.ready. It's gonna execute when this page opens up in the browser. It's gonna be the first code script that executes. Okay, so you're going to open it up like this. Open up the curly bracket here. We're going to type here hide contracting company. Okay, this is basically to call the hide contracting company function, JavaScript function. Okay, and you're going to create this function hide contracting company, and it's going to have code inside which is $and hashtag contracting company dot hide, which is going to hide a section on your form, and you're also going to have a function called show contracting company, which is going to show it dot show. Okay, hashtag contracting company needs to correspond to the div here. So you're going to go to the contracting company, which is the very last one, last column of field here on your page. You're going to give it an ID. You're going to give this div an ID of contracting ID. Here. So ID equals contracting company. So this means you can refer by name. You can refer to this div, and you can basically show and hide it on your page. Okay, so contracting company. So what this code is doing is it can hide and show contracting company. Now initially you want to hide it because you don't want to show it. Only when the user clicks on the type of contract you're going to hide or show the text box. Okay. So below that you have a function, another function you're going to create, populate department. Okay, and this you need to copy exactly as this. It's going to start with $.ajax, and this is the Ajax code. And Ajax is for kicking off code that executes asynchronously. Which means it'll come back with a result whenever it's not going to freeze up your page, your web page. It's not going to do a synchronous task where it freezes up your page and go and fetch data from database. It's going to happen in a seamless way, in a smooth way. So you're going to use Ajax here. The type is post because it's posting data. Okay, and the URL here is very important. So you're going to type in here /employee/Ajax get department. Now employees here refers to the name of your employee's controller, the name of your controller, okay, which in this case is employee's controller. Okay, so you're gonna write the employees. You're gonna omit the word controller because it will assume that it is a controller. So you're gonna just write the employees / and then you're gonna put in here a name of a function inside of your controller. And we're gonna give this name Ajax get department. Okay, which is gonna correspond to a function you're going to create here in your controller called Ajax get department, which we still need to create. So okay, data. This tag here signifies the parameters or the arguments that you need to pass to this function that you're going to create, and we're going to pass in a value for the ID parameter called #manager ID. Okay. Now #manager ID, of course, needs to refer to an actual element on your HTML here. Okay, and here we go. So we have here manager ID. Okay, it gets the manager ID. And in this case, if we have a drop-down list, as we create a drop-down list, we want to display a drop-down list of available managers, so that the user doesn't have to type in manually a ID of the manager. You just want to select an existing manager. Okay, so to make it more user friendly, so manager to correspond to what you're going to tell it here to get the .val, to get the value of the manager ID element on your page. Okay, the rest is just standard. Content type is application or JSON. Data type needs to be JSON here. Okay, we're going to have here a section called success. So if successfully it goes to that controller, goes to that code, and it gets a response back, okay, you're going to populate the txt department input box with this value that you're getting back. Okay, so you're going to say .val, you're setting the value of the text to response.department. The department obviously corresponds to a column in your object, in your database table. Okay, so if there's failure, then you're going to set the value of txt department to error. If there's an actual error, you're going to set it to error to indicate to the user that there was a problem getting the data back. So txt department, of course, is just below the manager dropdown that you created another element, and you created an input type of type text with an ID of txt department, and that is where you get that from. Okay, then you're gonna have another you're gonna have some more script here. Okay, you're gonna have $employee type ID dot change function. So this refers to the employee type ID. Employee type ID over here on your HTML HTML page. Okay, employee type ID over there. So the drop-down list has an event that fires, that triggers when the user selects makes a selection. It's called .change. Okay, this is an event that fires. So on the employee type ID, the dot change function, we're going to say if $this.val equals 2. So if the value of that drop down list, the value, the selection that the user makes, is equal to 2, okay, this ID 2 comes from your database now. If you go to the employee type table, you have an employee type ID of 1 and 2. So we're checking 2. If it's a contractor, in other words, in this case, if it's a contractor, then show the contracting company. We call this function in our jQuery, else call the hide contracting company. Okay, right. So it's going to either show or hide. It's going to show or hide according to this. It's going to either hide or show that text box that input type. Okay. Okay, and then we also have another function here on the manager ID dot change. So if this user makes a selection on manager ID, on the manager, if you just scroll up again, you get to the manager ID here, drop down list. Okay, so here, if you make a selection on manager ID, then it's going to trigger this jQuery code here. And so on the change event there, it's going to call popular department. It's going to call the popular department um, JavaScript function right here, and it's going to make a post to the Ajax get department function inside the employees controller. So let's go to the employees controller and let's create a function here. Let me just grab this code, and then I'm going to go through it with you line by line. I'm going to copy it from here and paste it here. So first thing, we need to type out here HTTP post in brackets, which means it indicates to MVC that this is a post and not a get to get information, but to actually post data back. Okay. Public JSON result. This is important. We need to send the result back in JSON. JavaScript object notation code. Ajax get department int ID. Now this is the parameter, the argument is passing in, the value that the user selected in the manager ID dropdown list. Then you're going to say view data, and the view data is also like a session kind of variable that holds data for a specific user session. It's like a global variable for us, so it's going to store a value in view data department. Okay, and you're going to write some link query code here. So you're going to say from USR in db.managers, KDB, of course, again corresponding to your database context, where the manager ID equals this value that you're passing in here. Select the department. Here you're going to say the to list first or default. Okay, so this is going to select the department for that specific manager, and it's going to return it back into this view data session object here. And then we're going to create a new instance of department model, and we're going to set the department property value equals to that. We're going to return JSON depth. We're going to return this instance of that object back to the view. So you will notice here a red squiggly, which means we're going to have to create department model. So this is something we have to manually create. So you go to the Solution Explorer and you go into your models folder and you right click on models and you click on add class, and you're going to call it department model.cs. Okay, department model, and as you can see, it needs to have a department property of type string, preferably. So you can say string department. Okay, give it a get set as a standard property there. Let's save all. Okay, so now it should pick it up. Let's just tell it to use put that in as a reference using the name of our solution, okay, .models. Okay, it will continue using JQuery Ajax sample.models. So now that we have that, let's test it. Let's see if we can get this code running. So you're gonna click on run there. Play. Okay, great. So let's click on any one of the menus at the top here to get our URL and select there again employee/index and go and create new, and let's create a new employee here. Let's call this one Billy Sanders, say he's from New York, and let's select. Now see here you have the it actually created a drop down list for you, so you can select different managers. Here you will see the value in department will change depending on the manager you selected. Okay, so let's say we choose Sarah and she's in retail department, as you can see, and the employee type here we need to select as a permanent or contractor. So if you select contractor, you will see contracting company now becomes visible. Okay, it becomes invisible, it hides it if you select